The movie begins with a man driving slowly down a quiet street, his eyes constantly scanning his surroundings as if he's searching for someone or something. After a while, he begins tailing a black car, following it closely until it turns into a dark, deserted alley. Suddenly, the white car behind it accelerates and slams into the black vehicle. The driver of the black car steps out, pulls out his phone, and starts recording the damage, carefully documenting the scene in the car that hit him to show the insurance company. The driver of the white car gets out as well, speaking calmly and acting cooperative. But while the victim is distracted, busy filming the damage, the man suddenly pulls out a knife and stabs him. He forces the wounded man into his own car and continues stabbing him mercilessly until he is completely dead. Then he calmly drives away in his white car. The next morning, two police officers head toward the crime scene. One of them, Detective Kim, looks exhausted and fed up with the monotony of routine police work. When traffic brings their car to a stop, Kim notices a group of gang members gathered on the side of the road. He gets out and walks toward them, attempting to enter their establishment. The gang members try to stop him, and when he refuses to listen, one of them even offers him a bribe. That's when Kim loses his temper. He beats them and forces his way inside. At that same moment, a powerful gang leader named Jang is finishing his morning workout practicing boxing. His right-hand man rushes in to inform him that a police officer has stormed their casino. Jang immediately stops punching the heavy bag, removes his gloves, and orders his men to return to their positions. He then gathers his crew and heads out to meet another gang leader. On the way, Jang calls the police chief and informs him that one of his officers is causing trouble and snooping around. He demands that the situation be handled. It becomes clear that the police chief is secretly working for Jang. Meanwhile, Detective Kim arrives at the murder scene. The forensic team is collecting samples and examining the body. The lead investigator notes that the victim's wallet is missing, suggesting it may have been a robbery. But Kim isn't convinced. The killing was far too brutal. A simple thief would only want the money, not to slaughter someone in such a savage way. While inspecting the scene, Kim finds traces of white paint at the rear of the victim's car. He suspects a white vehicle rammed into it. He shows this to the investigator, but she dismisses it as possibly old damage. Elsewhere, Jan meets with another gang leader named Sang to discuss business. Jan struggles to remain calm despite Sam's irritating eating habits and disrespectful attitude. He tries to negotiate peacefully, but Sam grows greedy and demands a larger share of the profits. John's right-hand man objects to Sam's behavior, and Sam's assistant snaps back angrily for speaking disrespectfully to his boss. Tension rises. John suddenly takes control of the situation. He calls his right-hand man forward and strikes him. Then he calls San's assistant, who obediently steps forward and braces himself for punishment. Deciding to teach them both a lesson, John grabs the assistant by the front teeth and brutally pulls them out with his bare hands. He drops the bloody teeth into San's drink and coldly tells him to drink it. Terrified, Sang obeys. Later, during the police meeting, Detective Kim presents his findings. He explains that the last 3 murders were committed using a knife, and based on forensic images, the stab wounds appear to have been inflicted by the same weapon. He believes they are dealing with a serial killer randomly targeting victims. The police chief becomes furious. Kim was not assigned to this case, and he accuses him of always interfering in matters outside his jurisdiction, just like when he stormed the casino earlier. He warns him that if he continues to meddle in gang affairs without permission, it won't end well for him. Meanwhile, John finishes his meeting and tells his right-hand man that he wants to be alone for a while. He orders his men to leave, deciding to drive himself home. On his way back, he's talking on the phone when suddenly his car is hit from behind. Because of the heavy rain and darkness, he can't see clearly. He steps out of the vehicle and comes face to face with the same serial killer. The killer apologizes, claiming he couldn't see properly because of the rain. John calmly tells him it's fine and that he can leave. The killer seems surprised. Most people would be distracted by inspecting the damage. But the moment Jan turns his back to return to his car, the killer attacks, stabbing him multiple times. This time, however, things don't go as planned. Unlike his previous victims, who tried to run or beg for mercy, Jan shocks him by fighting back. Because John is physically stronger, he overpowers the attacker at first, slamming him to the ground and beating him mercilessly. But the stab wounds and heavy bleeding begin to drain his strength. Seeing his chance, the killer lunges forward to stab him again. Jang grabs the blade with his bare hand, wrests it away, and this time drives it straight into the killer's chest. The killer, stunned by a resistance he never expected, panics. He breaks free, runs to his car, and speeds off. John stands in the middle of the road, barely conscious and covered in blood. In a final act of cruelty, the killer swerves and hits him with the car, leaving him broken on the asphalt before fleeing into the night. Jang is rushed to the hospital. At the same time, his men immediately assume that Sang, the rival boss he had met earlier, must be behind the attack. Without waiting for confirmation, Jang's right-hand man storms Sang's warehouse and brutally assaults his men. Meanwhile, the killer hides in a remote area inside his car, trying to disinfect and stitch up his wounds. Frustrated that he didn't get the twisted satisfaction he usually feels from murder, he sets out on foot until he stumbles upon a dog farm. When the dogs start barking, the farm owner comes out to investigate, only to become the killer's next victim. Later, Jang regains consciousness in the hospital and learns that his right-hand man attacked Sang, but Jang is certain Sang had nothing to do with it. He insists it was the first time he had ever seen his attacker, and that the man's method with the knife was different from anything he'd encountered before. He carefully writes down the description and license plate of the white car so his men can track it down. Soon after, Detective Kim enters the hospital room, trying to take John's statement to identify the attacker, but John refuses to cooperate. He wants to find the man himself, to restore his pride and reclaim his reputation. Realizing Yang won't help, Kim begins investigating on his own. Knowing Yang was stabbed on the road while driving, Kim heads straight to the garage. There he finds Jang's car, and just as he suspected, it's clearly been hit from behind by a white vehicle. This confirms his theory. It's the same person responsible for the previous murder. Not long after, Sang visits Jang in the hospital. He reveals that many of his men were injured in the attack carried out by Jang's crew. Jang takes responsibility and offers to compensate for the damages. But Sang isn't satisfied. He demands half the city Jang controls. Mocking him, Sang sneers, "What kind of gang leader gets beaten and stabbed in the middle of the street?" He even suggests Jang should kill himself after such humiliation. At the police station, Kim tries to convince his superior to assign him the case. He argues that the murders were committed by the same killer and that Jang, being the only survivor who saw him, is their only chance to identify the suspect. But the police chief dismisses the idea, insisting Jang would never cooperate and throws Kim out of his office. Meanwhile, the killer continues his spree. He arrives at a gas station and sees a truck driver talking to his wife on the phone. Without hesitation, he murders him and steals the truck. But as he drives off, he discovers someone else was sleeping in the back. When he tries to kill the second man during a struggle, his knife falls out of the truck. Back at John's headquarters, he hires a professional sketch artist and provides a detailed description of the attacker. When the portrait is complete and strikingly accurate, John hands it to his right-hand man and orders him to find the killer before the police do. Shortly after, Detective Kim leads a raid on Jang's casino. Kim confronts Jang and reveals that they inspected his gambling machines and discovered they were rigged to cheat customers. He gives Jang an ultimatum: cooperate in catching the killer or face arrest for fraud. Kim explains that this isn't an ordinary murderer. It's a serial killer. If they don't stop him now, more innocent people will die. But John is driven by something else. He wants to catch the killer himself, to restore his honor and make an example out of him. Later, Jang meets with his right-hand man, who reports that they've located the killer's white car. They also heard about a murder committed near where the car was found. When they searched the area, they discovered the killer's knife. As the situation unfolds, it becomes clear that Jung's empire is beginning to crumble. His reputation has been shattered among rival gangs, and Sang's organization is already moving in, taking control of Jung's territory while he struggles to recover. As rumors spread across the underworld that Jang has grown weak, he realizes his reputation is collapsing. Determined to restore his name as quickly as possible, he makes a bold decision. He will cooperate with Detective Kim. They meet in secret. Jang tells Kim that his men have located the killer's car, though he deliberately keeps the discovery of the knife to himself. He offers a deal. His men will work under Kim's command, and he will cover their salaries and expenses. In return, any information either side uncovers must be shared, and whoever captures the killer first will deal with him in their own way. Kim cautiously agrees to cooperate, but as he begins speaking freely, he realizes Jang has been secretly recording the conversation. Every time Kim hints at something sensitive, Jang already seems to have it documented elsewhere. Furious but cornered, Kim understands he has no real choice but to continue working with him. Later, Kim meets with two trusted colleagues and decides they will operate in complete secrecy, keeping the police chief in the dark. He refuses to do all the hard work only to hand over the evidence for someone else to solve the case and take the credit. At the same time, Jang sits with his right-hand man and admits that a sketch and a damaged car won't be enough to identify the killer. They need stronger evidence, fingerprints, DNA, things only the police can legally obtain. That is where Kim becomes useful. Soon after, a police forensic team examines the killer's abandoned car, which has been hidden inside one of Jan's illegal gambling warehouses. Kim makes it clear they will temporarily overlook the illegal location until the serial killer is caught. But Jan knows catching the killer will take time, and his criminal empire cannot afford more instability. Sen has already crossed the line, so Jan makes a ruthless move. One of Sang's closest men is murdered in his sleep. Jang uses the serial killer's own knife and leaves it at the crime scene, ensuring the police will assume the serial killer committed the murder. The next morning, the female investigator is out jogging when Kim approaches her. He discreetly hands her the forensic samples collected from the killer's car, along with money, asking her to process everything quietly and report only to him. Later, she arrives at Sang's murder scene and finds the knife still there. While Kim is attending a police meeting, she calls him with shocking news. The DNA found on the knife matches samples from all the recent serial murder victims. She also informs him that Sang has been killed, and the same knife carrying the serial killer's DNA was used. Kim immediately realizes what happened. John must have killed Sang. Without hesitation, he confronts Jang. A heated argument erupts, but John remains calm and physically dominant. When Kim directly asks if he killed Sang, Jung openly admits it. He insists that it changes nothing about their agreement. They will continue working together until the serial killer is captured. Soon, news breaks across the city. A serial killer is on the loose. The media frenzy erupts after forensic evidence links Sang's murder weapon to the previous killings. Meanwhile, the real killer watches the news quietly. Seeing himself blamed for Sun's murder, he decides to investigate. He attends Sun's funeral and spots John among the mourners. The killer approaches Sang's right-hand man, stares directly at Jang, and hands over a note stating that someone used his knife to kill Sang. But Sang's lieutenant doesn't need the note. He already suspects Jang. After leaving the funeral, the killer resumes his spree, murdering another man in the same brutal fashion and stealing his car. Later, Jang receives a call from Kim. They agree to meet at the location of the killer's car to search for more evidence. While examining the vehicle together, Kim mocks him slightly. Not every gang leader survives being stabbed in the street. Jan replies coldly that anyone else would have died like the other victims, but he managed to seize the knife and stab the attacker back before the killer fled. That gives Kim an idea. If Jang stabbed him, there must be the killer's blood inside the car. They search carefully and finally discover dried bloodstains on the steering wheel. Before they can leave, loud shouting erupts nearby. A rival gang storms in. It's Sang's men, led by his furious right-hand man, seeking revenge. Outnumbered, Jang fights fiercely despite his injuries. Kim, however, is overwhelmed and beaten to the ground. One attacker continues pounding him until Jang intervenes and saves him. Then Sang's lieutenant attempts to kill Jung, ordering his men to hold him down, but Kim jumps back into the fight. During the violent struggle, he accidentally stabs the lieutenant. He freezes in shock. He never intended to kill him. Jang immediately takes control, telling Kim to leave before the police arrive. Jang later buries the body in front of his own men as a warning, a brutal reminder of loyalty and consequences. Elsewhere, the serial killer drives the car of his latest victim. The dead man's phone rings. It's his wife, angrily asking why he's so late. The next day at the police station, the chief assigns Kim to a kidnapping case, ordering him to arrest the suspect. Kim explodes in frustration. The serial killer should be the priority. He reminds them that from the beginning he warned them it was a serial murderer, but no one believed him. The police chief tells Kim that another investigative team has now been assigned to the serial murder case. It is no longer their jurisdiction. Instead, he orders Kim to focus on a kidnapping case. Reluctantly, Kim meets with his colleagues and explains the situation. The victim is a wealthy Ghanaian businessman. Whoever abducted him will almost certainly demand ransom money. As expected, they begin monitoring the wife's phone calls. Soon, the kidnapper contacts her and instructs her to bring the money to a restaurant. She goes to the restaurant believing she will meet the kidnapper there. Kim and his partner hide nearby, waiting to arrest him the moment he appears. But to their surprise, it is the restaurant owner, a harmless woman, who collects the bag of money instead. Kim spots the kidnapper watching from another rooftop. The man realizes he's been seen and bolts. Kim and his partner chase him through the streets, but he is incredibly fast and disappears. They return to question the restaurant owner. She turns out to be innocent and unaware of the seriousness of what she was involved in. However, she remembers one detail. The kidnapper had been drinking a specific brand of soda with his meal. Unfortunately, that was hours ago. Kim and the forensic team rush to the storage area, searching through countless empty bottles to find the right one. After hours of digging through piles of glass, Kim begins losing hope. But the female investigator encourages him. She's used to this kind of tedious work. She also informs him that her team has found fingerprints on the steering wheel cover from the serial killer's car and is currently trying to identify the owner. After an exhausting day, Kim returns to the station, drained and discouraged. Fatigue and frustration begin to overwhelm him. Suddenly, the investigator arrives with exciting news. They were lucky. She managed to retrieve fingerprints from one of the soda bottles, and one of those prints matches the ones found on the steering wheel cover. That means the kidnapper and the serial killer are the same person. She hands Kim a file containing the suspect's identity and address. When Kim visits the residence, the landlady tells him the man hasn't been home for some time. Inside the apartment, the air smells foul and stale. Kim searches the place until he finds a photograph of the suspect. It closely matches the sketch Jane had commissioned. Immediately, Kim asks his colleague to send him the recording of the ransom call made to the kidnapped man's wife. Then he contacts John and plays the kidnapper's voice. The moment John hears it, he recognizes it instantly. A dark satisfaction crosses his face. At last, the man who destroyed his reputation is within reach. Kim and John arrange a secret meeting with Jung's men. One of the officers reports that they checked the call records of the killer's mother and discovered a suspicious number that frequently contacted her. They manage to trace its location. Jan gathers a large number of his men and gives clear instructions on what to do once they find the killer. He distributes copies of the suspect's photograph to everyone. They drive to the area where the suspicious calls were traced. The men spread out through the streets, questioning shop owners and passers-by. The search drags on for days without results. One rainy day, Jan waits for Kim so they can continue the search together. While standing in the downpour, Jan notices a young female student shivering in the rain, her clothes soaked. He offers her his umbrella. At first, she refuses, but he insists gently, telling her the most important thing is to focus on her studies and succeed. When Kim arrives, he finds Jung standing in the rain and realizes he gave away his umbrella. Kim scolds the girl, warning her not to accept things from strangers, especially from a man like Jung, a gang leader. But because Kim is shouting while Jane had shown kindness, the girl retorts playfully that Jane seems nicer, and maybe Kim is the real gangster. The moment passes humorously. She boards her bus and leaves. Later, Jane and Kim meet with Jane's men for dinner before continuing their search. While talking, Jane suddenly notices something on the news playing in the background: another murder. The serial killer has struck again, and the crime scene is very close to where they are. But the real shock comes when Jane sees something familiar in the footage: his umbrella, the same one he gave to the young girl. Rage consumes him. They race at full speed to the bus station where the girl had gotten off. They search frantically, questioning everyone nearby and showing the killer's photo. Eventually, they trace him to a hotel. The hotel owner provides the room number. When they enter the room, it's empty. They spread out, hiding inside and around the building, waiting for him to return. After some time, the killer arrives in a car, but he moves cautiously, constantly scanning his surroundings. From outside, he notices someone watching from a window. Instantly, he senses danger and flees. At that moment, the fragile alliance between Jung and Kim begins to fracture. Now it becomes a race. Whoever catches the killer first will claim him. Kim rams Jang's car in an attempt to get ahead. Furious, Jang accelerates recklessly, crashing into both vehicles as they speed through the streets. He jumps out and searches for the killer, but he's already vanished. Then Jang's right-hand man spots the killer running. They split up to corner him, but the killer uses their separation to his advantage. He ambushes the right-hand man and stabs him repeatedly. John hears his right-hand man screams and rushes toward the sound. The wounded man points in the direction the killer fled. Jang follows the trail until he notices blood leading into a karaoke club. He searches every room carefully. In one of them, he sees two young women singing through tears. Their fear tells him everything. Someone is threatening them. In a back room, the serial killer is murdering their friend. Suddenly, the door bursts open. Jang storms in and smashes a heavy object into the killer's face. They struggle violently before Jang overpowers him. Dragging the battered killer outside, Jang forces him into a car and takes him to one of his private warehouses. He calls Kim and tells him calmly, "I caught him. He's mine now." When Kim arrives, he finds the killer tied to a chair. Jang prepares for what he calls the party. The killer smirks and asks, "Don't you want to know why I killed them?" Jang replies coldly, "I only want to know one thing. Do you like grilled meat? Because someone's about to be cut up and roasted over charcoal." He is moments away from killing him when he hears an engine roar nearby. Suddenly, Kim crashes a car into John, knocking him aside. Kim grabs the killer, places him in the vehicle, and drives off, after saluting Jong with a brief defiant glance. Kim takes the killer to the police station and hands him over. The interrogation begins. News spreads quickly. The serial killer has been captured, but the situation is far from secure. So far, there is no solid evidence that can conclusively convict him. Meanwhile, John watches the news in disbelief as police raid all of his casinos. His men are arrested. Investigators confirm the gambling machines were rigged to cheat customers. A warrant is issued for Jang's arrest on fraud charges. During the interrogation, Kim tries to break the killer, pushing him to confess, but the killer toys with him, provoking him deliberately. Eventually, Kim loses control and lunges at him. At that moment, the police chief realizes he made a serious mistake trusting Kim. The trial begins, more accurately, what looks like it could become the killer's acquittal. The prosecution presents the knife, claiming it belongs to the killer. The defense attorney immediately counters that there is no proof linking the weapon to his client. They accuse the police of attempting to smear an innocent man's reputation. There is still no concrete evidence tying him to the murders. Desperate, the prosecution calls their final witness, the only surviving victim, Jong. It is revealed that after John merely killed the killer in the warehouse, Kim risked his life to persuade him. Kim tells Jong that the only true way to take revenge is to testify in court and ensure the killer is legally executed. John takes the stand. He states clearly that he saw the killer with his own eyes and that he was stabbed by him, but the defense attorney attacks John's credibility, reminding the court that he is a gang leader. He argues that violence and stabbings are common in gang life and that being stabbed does not prove his client was responsible. Calmly, John removes his jacket and shirt. He describes in chilling detail what happened that night. He shows the judge the scars covering his body. Then he explains something crucial. From experience, people who frequently use knives to kill often have scars and damaged fingernails from repeated use. He also reveals that during their fight, he stabbed the killer in the left shoulder. The court orders the killer to remove his shirt. On his left shoulder, the exact scar Yang described. The courtroom falls silent. Jan is arrested immediately on his outstanding fraud charges, but the serial killer is found guilty and sentenced to death. The final part of the secret agreement between Kim and Jang is then revealed. Jang had agreed to testify on one condition, that he and his men be imprisoned in the same facility as the killer. Jang is taken to prison. His men welcome him with deep respect. Because the film is based on a true story, what follows is something rarely seen in history. The victim smiles with a calm, deadly certainty, while the serial killer's face is filled with fear and dread. Later, in the prison bathroom, the water suddenly shuts off. The killer looks up and finds Jang standing beside him, holding a rope. Jang asks quietly, "Have you ever ridden the swing before?" The film ends with no need for further explanation. We are left certain that the killer finally drank from the same cup and received his punishment. If you enjoyed the recap, don't forget to like the video, and if you want to see more summaries like this, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.